Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to see such a full hall. But firstly, I would close that. I would like to thank Putts and Mary Commissioners for the use of this hall, allowing us to use this hall tonight. And second, thanks to Jez, our sound engineer, who's worked tirelessly all day to get the sounds working right. So it's great to see so many of you have come tonight to see the candidates, to listen to the candidates, and to make a decision on who you wish to represent you in government for the coming 5 years, or possibly even to comment on the track record of those who have represented you in the previous 5 years. As Chairman of the Parish, I have received the required 10 signatures from the registered voters from the parish election, which call on me to chair a public meeting that gives you the opportunity to question the candidates and to receive their policy. This evening we have 5 candidates, so to get as many questions in as possible, the agenda will be as follows. Each candidate will receive 4 minutes to formally introduce themselves and deliver a short statement of policy. I received a number of written questions and have chosen 3 at random to start the evening off. After that, I will then invite questions from the floor, and each candidate will have a maximum of 3 minutes to answer, and the candidates will answer on a rotational basis. To ask a question, please raise your hand and I will indicate when you may speak. Please give your name before asking your question, and I must emphasize that I will not allow any questions of a personal nature or on individual circumstances. I'm sure all the candidates would be willing to speak to anybody afterwards if they wish to speak to them on this basis. At around 9:40 to conclude the evening, each candidate will receive a further 3 minutes to summarise before we close the meeting at 10 p.m. For anyone not familiar with the candidates, I will introduce them with a very brief summary in alphabetical order. Mr. Leo Cousins, next from the end, was born and educated in the IOM and has an honours in law from Lancaster University and a legal practice certificate from Manchester University, but is probably known better for being the proprietor of Kenneth Wines in Port Erin. If elected, he would give all his time to represent the people of Rushen. Mr. James Hampton, Holland, educated in Victoria Road, Castle Rushen High School, and then Liverpool John Moores University. BA Honours in Architecture. Then to University College London, where he gained an MSc in Development and Planning. Then to the RUSHEN College, where he gained an MBQ in Carpentry and Joinery. Has his own business, Manwood Traditional Carpentry Limited. Mr. Mark Kent, a young man with a very comprehensive CV. Born and educated on the island. On leaving school, he spent the following 19 years in accountancy, working for Willis Management and Marsh Management, subsidiaries of a major insurance companies. A change in career found him becoming a teacher in island schools, a post he resigned from to contest this election. We have Mr. Lawrence Skelly, a comparative newcomer to the political scene after serving his first 5 years term as an MSK, in possibly one of the most difficult times in Manx politics. And to say he has made a success of his first 5 years in government is quite an understatement. As his present position as Minister for Economic Development, he had a prime role in shaping the island's future. Mr. Stuart Watterson, one of our 2 sitting members and currently Minister of Home Affairs, has served 2 5-year terms and has proved himself a very able MHK. He is involved in numerous clubs and charities within the parish. Stuart has a young family, so takes a very personal interest in both education and clubs that can be of benefit to the youth in the south of the island. I've always stated that Rushen is without doubt the premier parish. Tonight I believe we have the premier candidates here. The first question is from Mr. John Lavender. Sorry?
We could do all the inputs or you can just ask questions.
We're going to have, I'm going to ask 3 questions now. I thank you.
Yeah. I thought we were going to have a
5 minutes on the floor.
Okay. Sorry. I think we're going to give have a chance to introduce ourselves and say a few words about ourselves. If that's the format that we provided. The format that we were provided with said that we'd each get a few minutes to introduce ourselves.
Of course you would. You're perfectly right. You could start. You just found the obvious mistake. So on that basis, we're going to start with Mr. Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Clucas. Good evening, everybody. Okay, so where do I start? As Mr. Clucas rightly pointed out, I began my career as an accountant many years ago. I've worked for some fantastic companies. I've achieved some great things in the context of what I used to do. I've worked for a company which I'm sure most of us are familiar with as well, which is PokerStars. Now, when I worked for that company, I was responsible for producing the company's key performance indicators, which is how we make people accountable for things. I was auditing various offices around the world. So, got a wide-ranging skill set in terms of change and making people and making, I suppose, government accountable should I get elected. Now, I left accountancy because I felt I was making rich men richer, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to give something back to the island. So I became a teacher. 3 fantastic years up at QE2. Last year I worked at Ballacameen High School, where I was teaching business, and I was working in the Key Stage 4 office helping some of our more troubled children. Fantastic experience. Again, valuable skill set gained. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring to the fore all those skills, and I'd like to use them to reclaim this island for you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Theo Cousins. I grew up in Glen Bay. I worked on the farms in the summer, putting hay onto the farms there up on the ranch and down by the Kirky. It was, sort of, lots of things changed, but I remember this sort of time very fondly in my mind. I sort of remember, I suppose we all do, what the island means to us over a period of years, and how recently we've seen a lot of change. And we're sort of at a juncture, one could say, pivotally, where we're going to go or what the possibilities are. And I think at the moment we're sort of lacking a direction. And what I mean by direction is that we define something and we say, this is what we want. And if we define that, and we sort of lose the conversation of economics, because economics, although it's important, that comes later. We have to decide what it is that we want. So if we define what it is that we want in each of the different sectors, we're going to start to work towards these. And some of these things may be, in the beginning, seem unplausible. How do you balance primary school education with roads? That's not the question. The question is, if you define it, we can then work towards it. And being a creative island and a history of a long creative past, I believe that we can do these things. I am, as many of you know, the proprietor of Kane Wines, so I see an awful lot of what goes on. I'm also part of the Port Ellen Traders, so I understand a lot of the issues that are affecting the economics in Rushen. I also sponsor the Arts Centre, and I believe a lot of our progress or possibilities lie in the way that we interact with arts. And there are so many examples of this in regeneration work and things that can, in different places, here and further afield in Europe. I'm particularly concerned about, and I've seen this knocking on the doors, how older people, and often people on the fringe of society, are really struggling. And that's not something that was really a part of the Isle of Man, in my opinion. or it's not something that I'm happy to see. So we have to sort of deal with some of these problems straight on. I don't believe there's any other way to deal with it, so we have to engage in that. I have to have a conversation that engages in what it means to be Manx in the borders section of everybody that lives and works here. I'm also newly a father. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Julian Watterson. I'm 36 years old, born and bred in the Isle of Man. Spent my early years in Edgermoney and moved to Port St Mary in 1992. After RUSHEN, I went to Lincoln University, where I graduated valedictorian with a first-class degree in management in 2001. Then went on to join the global accountancy firm KPMG in the same year and qualified as a chartered accountant in 2005. In 2006, I became chairman of the Institute's Governing Council and am currently a member of the influential Members and Commercial Board of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. In my spare time, I volunteer for a number of charities and treasurer of Southern Befrienders. I'm the vice chairman of the Port Erin branch of the British Legion, as well as being the Isle of Man treasurer for that organisation. I support Travel Watch and Port Erin Traders as their independent examiner as well. In March 2010, I married Helena. I have 2 children, a 5-year-old Sophie and a 3.5-month-old Jack. In November 2006, oh hello, there he is. In November 2006, you elected me as member of the House of Keys for RUSHEN. I've been energetic in pursuing a wide range of issues. I've moved private members' bills on. I'll give up. I've moved private members' bills on breastfeeding, protection of war memorials, as well as trying to pass a bill to remove some of the secrecy from our budgeting process, which failed by a single vote. I've been on numerous select committees, not to mention the chairing the one on the collapse of Captain Singer and Friedlander, and recently chaired recently been on a select committee on the funding of nursing care, which is an issue that I know is close to a lot of people's hearts and something that I think there is a solution to. In the last 5 years, I've been Minister for Home Affairs, and I've taken 25% out of that department's budget. The central office has reduced from a peak of 27 down to 9, and we still managed to keep all of our retained fire stations, as well as reorganise the estate to save money and provide an update for the ageing fire station in Port Erin. We have a great prison with more prisoners working, over 3,500 hours of community service in our glens and with beach buddies. The police have crime levels down to 1970 levels and a detection rate double the UK average, something we can all be proud of. All in all, by sticking to the basics and with great people, we have cut costs and improved the service. That's what the island needs at this difficult time, to reduce the drain on our reserves and before resorting to increases in taxes or charges. Looking forward, I want to see an island with a strong and diversified economy. In order to be resilient, we need to provide confidence. We need to ensure that there are no knee-jerk reactions, as some would like to see. I also think that whilst unpalatable, a closer, not more distant relationship with the UK is what is required, especially as the UK markets itself to the wider world in the face of Brexit. Their potential to damage us is boundless, and we can only lose. That's not to say that we sit back and get stomped on. We need to be clearer in our messaging that we are not a tax haven in the Irish Sea, but an integral part of the British economy, and that there is mutual benefit in working together. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lawrence Skelly. I'm 54 years of age. I've been married to my wife Jackie for 30 years, soon to be 31 in a couple of weeks. I have 2 children, one in working and has a very successful career, and one in university still. Manx born and bred. I've spent 15 years living in California in America. And in America, I had a business which I took pretty much from a near bankrupt position to have a $28 million turnover, staff of 70 and 5 officers. In 2000, I decided to give that up with my family, as I wanted them to be raised around their family, be well grounded here on the Isle of Man. And at that particular point, I took a number of different roles, mostly in the consultancy area with regards to e-business and event management, and founded a couple of companies. And in 2011, I decided to take a new challenge and stood for the House of Keys, and was clearly very successful, thankfully to you good people here in RUSHEN. Stan indicated that these are difficult times, there's no doubt about it. These are very turbulent times, economically and socially. So, from a political standpoint, it was a difficult time to enter politics. However, I felt my skills, my background would be a benefit to the island. And I adopted what I would regard as a proactive approach to politics, and I've tried to engage in all aspects. In government, I've done a whole host of different roles. I've been a member in Department of Community, Culture and Leisure. I've done a whole host of different sectors within economic development. I've been chairman of the Arts Council, where we launched the Island of Culture. Big fan of culture, history and heritage, which is why I'm also a founder of the Russian Heritage Trust. And I've also been chairman of planning. I've been DOI minister, and for these last 2.5 years, I've been minister for economic development. And what that means is I've been responsible for the economy. You've heard the 3 principles of government, which I very much subscribe to: growing the economy, protecting the vulnerable, and rebalancing the budget. Quite frankly, the other 2 don't matter if you can't grow the economy. So that's what my focus has been. And instead of talking about GDP, GNP, I've focused on jobs, because it's jobs that are most important here, because that's what will give us a real benefit. Real jobs, real benefit to the island. And where we are today, we have the lowest unemployment we have over the last 10 years. And that's against the backdrop of 200 million lost for VAT, the banking crisis and the resulting recession, and all the other instabilities going on around us. So I like to think that I've actually given my all. I believe that I've actually given a positive contribution politically, which is exactly why I'm asking once more for your trust on the 22nd of September. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Hampton. As you can see, I am your alternative candidate. I was born on the Isle of Man. I grew up in Castletown, and I was very fortunate to be married into the upper echelons of RUSHEN. I moved to Port St Mary in about 2008, got married in 2010. My family history does actually partly originate in RUSHEN. My grandfather owned 2 of the big hotels on Port Erin Promenade. If your memory goes back that far, my grandmother lives in Port St Mary still. The reason I'm here is not particularly because I feel that I'm any better than these guys, which sounds like an odd thing to say, but the reason I'm here is I have a concern about the system that we use to form government, and the fact that you don't have any say in it. You don't have any say in the policy direction that we are taking. That's why I'm here, that's how I came to be here. It kind of started, well, I suppose going back, my first degree was in architecture, and I got a first class degree in architecture at Liverpool, and then I went off and did a little bit of architecture for a while and realised that I'm not really cut out to sit behind a desk, which might be a problem if I become a politician, but you know. I then changed tack slightly, and as Stan said, I did taught masters in development planning, the development planning unit in UCL. And then I sort of changed tack again because my initial desire at that point was to run off somewhere foreign, but as I say, I ended up back in Port St Mary because of a lovely young lady. So at that point, I then ended up doing a bit of cabinet making, mainly just by accident really, because I didn't really know what else I was going to do, and that's led me down the path to have my own business eventually. I do design and build predominantly with oak frames. So I have a slightly unusual background, maybe I should say, but basically, long story short, that led me, you know, when I started my own companies here, I've got 2 companies actually. I've got a small design and build company and a small solid fuel, renewable fuels company, logs basically, and biomass fuels. And when I came back to the island in 2008, started these businesses, one of the things that I got involved with early on, and I don't know if any of you remember this at the time, but I did try and start a renewable fuels cooperative, and it was around this time that the government commissioned the AEA report on renewable energy, and I went to the presentation at the Manx Museum, and I thought, that's a brilliant report. Everything in that is fantastic. And then I watched as it was put in file and at me. And at that point I thought, what's going on here? The government have paid for that report. It's full of fantastic recommendations that could really help the island, not from a tree-huggy, let's say the environment point of view, but from a financial point of view. Security, energy security and finance. And I thought, well, so at the time I spoke to another MHK that I know quite well, who's Phil Dawn, and before the last election, ultimately I came to the point where I said, well, if you can't make these things happen, what's the point of you being in government? And it was prior to the last election that I recommended, I started talking to Phil about direct democracy, because that's actually one of the things that I wrote my final dissertation on for my master's degree. So, yes, it's safe to say I got disillusioned in 2010. I sort of walked away from it all and got on with doing what I've been doing since. And at the beginning of this year, I suppose I became aware that there was a general election coming on, and a few things happened. One of the initial ones was the bridge in Laxey, and there was a lot of debate about it, and of course there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, that flipping government have done this," and I was sitting there thinking, "It's your government. It's your government. Why isn't it doing what you want it to do?" So, being the unconventional chap I am the man who walked around Laxey in the rain, putting leaflets through the door to make sure that everybody could vote on their bridge. Some people did, and the decision was ultimately made. And I am the person who has sort of, through the year been part of these conversations. I made 2 submissions to Lord Lisvane. I think Lord Lisvane's recommendations were... My time's up?
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, my time's up. Yes, I am your alternative candidate.